Hello and welcome to the News at 10 on NTA News 24. We are broadcasting live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Dennis Adigunloye. Let's first bring you the headlines. President Buhari reiterates Nigeria's commitments to deepening and expanding collaboration with Zambia in the interest of citizens and economy of the two countries.
Everybody has a role to play. Better play. Politics should be over. The security situation of the country.
Governor Bello Masari decries imposition of state of emergency across Nigeria on security sector.
To address post-harvest losses, path to market and supply chain challenges.
And Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says Nigeria will prioritize innovation and technology investments in agriculture by attracting young people. And we'll begin at the presidency, where President Muhammadu Buhari says Nigeria is committed to deepening and expanding collaborations with Zambia in the greater interest of their people and economies. The president stated this while receiving a special envoy of his Zambian counterpart, Edgar Chagwa Lungu. He said Nigeria and Zambia stand to benefit from each other if further areas of collaboration are in critical economic sectors. The president explained that doing so will also impact positively on the African continent. The special envoy, Joseph Malanji, who is Zambia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, thanked Nigeria for her big brother role in ECOWAS and the African continent. He said whenever the strong strengthens the weak, equity is exemplified. The envoy told President Buhari that the Zambian leader is desirous of stronger bilateral relations with Nigeria, as well as greater impetus for the joint commission of cooperation between the two countries. President Buhari also granted audience to the second Vice President of the Pan-African Parliament, Madame Hadira Aichata Sisi. State House correspondent Amno Sambo reports that details of their discussions were, however, not made public. Governor Aminu Bello Masari of Katsina State has spoken against suggestions for the imposition of a state of emergency across Nigeria on the security sector, saying the desired results will not be achieved. With the prevailing circumstances, speaking to State House correspondents after an audience with the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the governor, warned against politicizing the issue of security in the country.
The responsibility of securing this country is ours, all of us. We have a role to play. And we must play it for the sake of the country and for the sake of our children and grandchildren, not for the sake of the persons that are in office. I think we have to understand that whatever we do to restore security today, we are not doing it for one particular person or group of persons. If you say, okay, state of emergency, what do you do? We are having the same people, the same security agencies, the same capacities, and the same resources. So what are we talking about? We have a problem that everybody has a role to play. We better play it. Politics should be over. The security situation of the country is beyond partisan politics. It's a national concern for all of us, every responsible person in this country.
Katsina State Governor Aminu Bello Masari. Meanwhile, Senate Committee on Army has resolved to meet with the Minister of Finance and Service Chiefs on Tuesday next week over releases of funds to security agencies, particularly the Nigerian Army. This was during the committee's interaction with the representative of the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. John Yaku has details.
The central issue for the interaction was to receive proof from the Ministry on release of funds to the Nigerian Army amidst rising insecurity in the country. The bone of contention, however, is the summary of budgetary releases to Operation Lafia Dole and Operation Hadarin Daji, which showed that it was 100% from 2019 to 2020.
2019, 75 billion was appropriated. The same was released 100%. If you look at the second line there was even a supplementation from the service-wide vote, apart from the appropriation, which was released 100%. We have released 19.7 for the first quarter. Just yesterday, we have released 19.9.
However, a letter from the Army to the committee, on the other hand, shows that there was a shortfall of 50 billion naira.
If you say you have made a release of 100%, here is a letter indicating that from the time of the introduction of Operation Lafia Dole, they have a shortfall outstanding of 50 billion. So if you are paying them 100%, how come do they have a shortage of 50 billion?
This, the committee believes, is capable of hampering the operations of the army in tackling the rising insecurity in the country. The committee therefore resolved that the issue cannot be settled in the absence of the minister and service chiefs, as they were invited to appear before the committee on the same day. It also resolved that the minister should appear with details of release of funds to who, dates, and for what purpose such releases were made from 2019 to date. In Abuja, John Yaku, NTA News.
And improving safety of workers, their families and public institutions in the face of rising insecurity were issues of concern at the National Peace Summit, organized by the Nigeria Labour Congress to commemorate 2021 Workers' Day. Emmanuel Ayemiro reports that there were concerted efforts to interrogate all indices responsible for the siege of insecurity.
International Labour Organization's Recommendation 202 provides for national social protection covering for the unprotected, the poor, and the most vulnerable, including workers in the informal economy and their families. So also is Recommendation 205, which provides an instrument that addresses the world of work issues in crisis situations. For the NLC, these two recommendations are key in addressing insecurity affecting the working class, while other speakers called for genuine dialogue that will guarantee peaceful coexistence.
Our armed forces are capable of bringing this insurgency to an end if they are better armed, equipped, and modern technology and adequate motivation is deployed.
Nigeria, since 1999, is being run as a unitary government.
I'm advising my own people, please, if you have been sleeping 5 hours in a night, cut it down to 2 or 3 hours. Let us try to mask this unknown government.
For the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, Nigerian kind of solutions must be applied in addressing the crisis.
We must answer the clarion call to come together as a people and defeat this common enemy of the country that is assuming a frightening dimension. Injury to one, injury to all.
At the end of the deliberations, the summit is expected to produce a coherent peace-building agenda that will complement government initiative on national security. Emmanuel Ayemiro, NTA News.
Governors of Ekiti and Kebbi states, representing the Nigeria Governors Forum and the Progressives Governors Forum, are seeking collaboration with the Nigeria Police Force in tackling security challenges affecting the nation. Francis Fom reports that the governors met behind closed doors with the Acting Inspector General of Police in his office.
This is the second time governors are visiting the acting IGP, Usman Baba Al-Khali, since assumption of office. Discussions at the meeting centered on how to stem the tide of insecurity that the country is grappling with.
There's hardly any state you go to, as I'm sure the IG will confirm to you, where governors are not supporting the police command in the state. We are always working with our police. It's understandable anyway. They are helping us too. So it's a quid pro quo.
A lot of us expect them to do magic, and little do we realize that they are also human beings that we need to support, we need to appreciate.
At least you have seen that we have been recognized, we have been honored, we've been appreciated, and that is the best thing you can get from your leaders.
The acting IGP says such visit will encourage the force to do more in the fight against crime and criminality. Francis from NTA News.
Let's turn our attention to information and communications technology now, and the journey of getting all Nigerians to use digital technologies in solving present and future challenges, ICT experts say, is moving fast, with the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, introspecting the past and setting new targets. ICT correspondent Joseph Johnson, who was at the agency's 20th anniversary lecture, reports that the event featured the unveiling of a new strategic roadmap and action plan 2021 to 2024.
Conversations here centered on 20 years growth and resilience of the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, and the next phase of the journey. The agency is confident of its capabilities to be part of the fourth industrial revolution.
NITDA is willing, able, and ready to help you create and capture value from digital economy and make our country more prosperous.
The journey so far has been very commendable, but when it comes to our surveillance, we need to increase more so that we will be able to fight corruption through reducing the price of IT projects being executed by the federal public institutions.
There is still a long way to go. NITDA needs to aim, focus, and concentrate on the well-being and development of the digital Nigerian.
NITDA is said to have delivered 100% with a higher and deeper impact to the nation's economy. But many here say that does not undermine the need for the agency to reinvent itself and meet digital age challenges in an ever-increasingly dynamic and competitive world, especially as the ministry is working towards achieving a digital Nigeria. Joseph Johnson, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the federal government remains committed to capturing every part of the country in its quest to migrate from analog to digital transmission, as well as the stimulation of local content. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, reiterated this at the launch of the Lagos Digital Switchover.
This may look like a daunting task. Indeed, it is. But the fact that we are here in Lagos today is a testimony to our resilience and determination to ensure the success of the transition from analog to digital television across the country.
General of the National Broadcasting Commission, Armstrong Idachaba, and that of the Nigerian Television Authority, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, commended the present administration for its dogged determination to the digital switchover project.
I would like to say well done, but let us remember that we are not yet there. We have, however, shown the capacity. We have, however, shown that we have the capacity to go all the way. And going all the way requires synergy.
Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed. All right, you are on to the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We'll take a break now. Do stay with us. We'll be right back after this timeout. Thanks for remaining with us. Now, Nigeria is prioritizing innovation and technology investments in agriculture so as to transform the sector by attracting young people and also scaling up productivity. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo stated this in his remarks delivered virtually at the 2021 high-level dialogue on Feeding Africa. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports.
During the COVID lockdowns, we trained and deployed over 34,000 graduates, young graduates, all over the country.
Highlighting the programs of the federal government listed as the Economic Sustainability Plan, the National Livestock Transformation Plan, and the Green Imperative Project to ensure agricultural transformation in Nigeria, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says implementation of the initiative is already yielding impressive results.
Part of the plan also is the establishment of about 142 privately owned agro-processing service centers, which will also be established to address post-harvest losses, path to market and supply chain challenges, and train about 100,000 new extension agents to address farmer advisory service delivery challenges with new technology and practice adoption.
The Vice President notes that the organizers of the dialogue on food security, the African Development Bank, the International Food for Agricultural Development, and other partners deserve commendation for holding the important dialogue on perhaps the most crucial development issue, emphasizing that the future must involve making agriculture attractive to young people. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo has warned that Nigeria cannot afford a war and that the elite in the country should rise up and speak the truth against forces of division in order to preserve the unity of the country. The Vice President stated this in Abuja when addressing some all-progressives Congress leaders from the Southeast, particularly chieftains and members from Anambra State. He noted that it is the political elite that will determine what will take place, and keeping quiet with the hope that things will normalize could lead to a worse situation and endanger lives and the future of the country. The Vice President said that every conflict was a result of failure of the elite to speak up and tell the truth to their communities. Speaking about the forthcoming primaries for the governorship election in Anambra State, the Vice President said a fair process or fairness of justice will be fundamental to ensuring victory for the party at the polls. Now, following the passage for second reading of the bill seeking special legislative seats for women by the House of Representatives, the Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Tallen, has expressed the happiness of Nigerian women and thanked the legislators. The minister, in a statement, said Nigerian women stand tall and in solidarity with the National Assembly on the historic milestone recorded in women and demanded for more political space. She saluted the leadership of the 9th National Assembly and members, saying that the bill seeking to create 111 additional special seats for women in the National Assembly, 37 in the Senate and 74 in the House of Representatives, is very important as more women will be involved in decision-making and governance. Meanwhile, the National Assembly is canvassing for votes for the position of the Vice President of the Pan-African Parliament taking place next month in South Africa. One of Nigeria's members to the Pan-African Parliament, Senator Bala Ibn Nala, tabled Nigeria's position when the Nigerian caucus received the current second Vice President and one of the presidential candidates, a Chapter Haidara Sise, who came to seek for Nigeria's support in the forthcoming election. The Malian delegation says Nigeria's role in the continental parliament is strategic for it to be able to compete with other regional parliaments globally.
The cooperation between Mali and Nigeria will be sustained on two sides. One Francophone, one Anglophone. And that if she becomes president and decides that she wants a vice president from any of the Francophone, it will not be nice for us. We can't explain this to our people.
In the history of the Pan-African Parliament, only one Nigerian has served as president. Central Bank of Nigeria approves the immediate removal of all directors of First Bank Limited as financial Regulatory agencies hold conversations on opportunities and risks of cryptocurrencies. Details of this and more on Business News with Comfort Ahmad.
The Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption is holding conversations on the need to develop legal framework and policies to regulate cryptocurrency and other blockchain technology by considering the global trends, opportunities, and risks. Taking into account issues of consumer protection, tax evasion, money laundering, capital flight, and financing of terrorism via blockchain technology, stakeholders at the virtual meeting unanimously agreed that Nigeria has to develop a framework for proper adoption of virtual assets.
Citizens are using it. They are eking out a living. They are engaged. They are making money. And somehow they are contributing to the national economy. Therefore, we should pay attention because of that reason. And while it is being operated, we should pay attention so that we can know who is doing what with it, so much so that the government can get revenue.
They need accountability, particularly in the conduct of public officers, as well as politically exposed personalities, is something that requires serious checks and balance.
In another development, the Central Bank of Nigeria has approved the immediate removal of all directors of First Bank Limited and First Bank Holdings PLC, as well as the appointment of new directors. At a briefing in Abuja, the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele said the decision is informed by media reports that the Board of Directors of First Bank Limited, an important bank under regulatory forbearance regime, had effected sweeping changes in executive management without engaging or prior notice to the regulatory authorities. The Central Bank of Nigeria therefore approved the appointment of Remi Babalola and Tunde Hassan Odukale to chair First Bank Holdings Limited and First Bank Limited.
Given that the actions being taken by the CBN are meant to strengthen the bank and position it, the CBN hereby reassures the depositors, creditors, and other stakeholders of the bank of its commitment to ensure the stability of the financial system.
And here are the closing figures of trades on the floor of the Nigerian capital market. With business news, Comfort Ahmadu.
Now, to further strengthen efforts by the federal government towards the attainment of Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which focuses on education for all. Key players in the education sector are clamoring for a reduction of taxes in order to raise new funds for the sector. Elizabeth Omoriu reports that this was their view at a national dialogue on education financing at the instance of Action Aid Nigeria.
Elijah and Angel are secondary school students who believe increased funding is critical for them to achieve their goals without disparity. It would be recalled that in 2015, world leaders agreed to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, including SDG 4. With a decade to go, what efforts are in place to achieve the goal of inclusive and equitable education in Nigeria? This question informed this gathering to map out strategies geared towards its attainment in Nigeria.
Lack of public social spending, there is always that legendary of increasing poverty and insecurity. Because of the underlying underfunding of education, the private sector is on the increase and entrenching social inequalities.
The Senate Committee reaffirmed its commitment of ensuring legislation with the sole aim of improving and rejuvenating the deplorable infrastructure teaching and learning conditions in our tertiary institutions.
Increase in overall budget, provision of libraries, and substantial increase in supply of teachers were part of recommendations. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
The Commandant General of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Ahmed Audi, has assured Nigerians of a highly coordinated approach put in place to avert the looming threat of attacks on airport facilities across the country. The NSCDC boss, who in a swift reaction to an intelligence report directed commandants of states with airports to immediately liaise with the airport's management authorities and other relevant stakeholders to fortify the internal security mechanisms of the facilities, also hinted that the move is necessary to elicit credible intelligence that will not only prevent such attacks, but also to bring those behind the purported attacks to book. According to the CG, the Corps cannot afford to treat the security of Nigerians with kid gloves, hence his marching order to all concerned state commandants to adequately deploy operatives from specialized units such as counter-terrorism, anti-vandalism, crisis and disaster management, as well as intelligence and surveillance personnel for covert operations to all the airports in the country. He called on all Nigerians to see the security of the nation as everyone's business and not an exclusive preserve of security agencies alone, but by volunteering credible information about any suspicious movements or criminal activities, as he assured them of his organization's commitment to protecting the identity of informants. You are still on to the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We'll take another break now. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.